there's two sides to an equation when you're talking about an election. One is you want to lift up your candidates, lift up a Democrat. The other is you want to drag your opponents, right? And in this particular instance, I think dragging our opponents means more than just dragging a couple of Republicans for the harms that they're creating every day. I think it means stealing major strongholds from the Republican Party to make them think a little bit about how far and extreme they've gone. So there was a time when Way to Win first started that places like Arizona and Georgia were thought to be just pies in the sky. It's like, no, actually the numbers are there. If you look at it, there are paths to victory. And I think folks like Warnock have shown us how to win in these southern places, Senator Warnock. And we see that kind of model coming together with James Tallarico, a Southern man who is, steeped in values. There is strength in standing in your values and not just capitulating to whatever the wind is telling you is what's popular in the moment, And I think that James Tallarico, the candidate for Senate, is showing that. There's like a strange ability he has to talk to the left and talk to maybe some millennial maha moms that are just looking for a little bit of help here with their kids. There's just like this strange wind in the air. And so whereas my job previously was to build steadily through the mega metros, you've got places like Harris County that overlay Houston, Dallas County and Dallas, where there are millions and millions of voters that are sitting on the sidelines. We were steadily registering them to vote. This is one of those moments where instead of the steady increase, we should just go whole hog on a giant set of persuasion campaigns behind Tallarico and see how far we get, because the other side is broken right now. They've got nothing to offer Texans.
That's really interesting. I know that there was just a Republican memo that dropped that showed that Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, is actually up on the incumbent Senator John Cornyn in that runoff. Talk to us about that and how that might change the contours of this race if Paxton does pull it out.
Well, let's just remember the last time a Texan came really close to winning statewide, and it was Beto O'Rourke in the Senate campaign in 2018. And he came within 2 points of defeating Ted Cruz. And part of it is because Beto worked his ass off. And I mean it literally, like the dude campaigns. But the other reason he got very close is because nobody really likes Ted Cruz. And so we're looking at that kind of model here, watching what's happened on the Republican side in Texas. No one really likes Cornyn or Paxton, but people really are concerned about Paxton. Whereas Cornyn, no one likes him because I don't think anyone can point to anything he really stands for or does. At least he's like an adult in the room. Whereas Paxton is, cheating on his everything, cheating on his wife, cheating in business, all the things, right? Like he's an indicted attorney general. How that works, I don't know. Watch out, world. He may be on a short list for taking Pam Bondi's job. However, the fact that it's not a real good human means that there's some opportunity to see some, Republican defectors or Republican stay homers, like they're just they don't want to vote for a super bad guy. So it changes the face of the electorate for the Republicans, as the Democrats have a really awesome standard bearer. The other thing that I've been noticing about the Cornyn and Paxton fight is Paxton is so messy, both politically, but also internally. He cannot manage a disciplined campaign. Texas is very big. You have to campaign in over 21 media markets at once and manage that budget. And Paxton just doesn't really get to do it. So in any case, it puts the Democrats in a unique advantage for the state in this particular election.
Yeah, Paxton is the worst. He is so bad. And I don't know how else to say it, but he is so damaged. And I hadn't heard that he was up against Cornyn at this moment, but is that a mirage or what's happening there?
I don't think it's a mirage, because Paxton, while he's terrible, is also a movement, a MAGA movement darling. And so people know
Right.
that he'll carry water for that movement. And that's more important necessarily than, a human's values or track record. And so for a particular kind of person in a Republican primary, remember, they're still fighting for the Republican primary, which is
Right.
the base of the base of the base, right? Who turns out for these runoffs? But on the other hand, I mean, Cornyn is raising money hand over fist. He is a disciplined campaigner. He's got a ton of money up all over the media markets. Whenever I turn on TV, I see a Cornyn ad, and I can't say what that means about his digital targeting because I'm not a Republican primary voter. However, he's always up on TV. I guess that just shows the power of how much money he has. And so if for whatever reason Cornyn squeaks by, it's going to be because the size of his campaign purse and the discipline he brought to that campaign. However, I will say he's going to need to keep it coming, right? So Tallarico is a real opponent. And Texas Republicans, particularly on the statewide, have acted for a long time like they don't have real opponents. They're not used to having to really amass statewide campaigns. They're going to spend a lot of money in a cycle where they have a lot of seats to defend, particularly in the House. And so, I say bring it on.
This primary is going to be wildly expensive on the Republican side. But audience member says, it's expensive, but is Tallarico going to have enough money to compete across the state, especially considering the GOP budget?
I mean, Tallarico, we'll see, right? We just had a reporting deadline in the first quarter of the year. Tallarico raised a lot of money in the primary, and when he was up against Jasmine Crockett in the Democratic primary, and he outraised Crockett. A lot of conversation online about where that money came from. I can tell you, having read some of the early reports, the strength in Tallarico's fundraising numbers is the grassroots donor. So another thing that folks need to understand about Texas, I mentioned the big marketplace a couple of times, is we've got a lot of Democrats in this state. It may be a red-hued state. It may be a state where Republicans still have sort of a voter registration advantage. However, this is a giant marketplace with millions of Democrats who are willing to write the $5 check once a month, every month for the entire campaign. And it's a lot of them. And so Tallarico's definitely inspired that class, raising that money. He's also managed to court some major interests across the country. So he's not reliant exclusively on the grassroots donor. I think there are mid-sized donors who really want to see a balance of power equal out in the Senate. I can tell you that, we're all watching our republic slip away. I mean, we're all watching really a shocking downward spiral in the trajectory of America as a global superpower that has the kind of the moral fortitude to lead the world. That's not where we're at on Easter Sunday. Are you kidding me? We're all still sort of reeling by this Easter Sunday post. It is shocking. All of my Republican in-laws would be rolling in their graves right now. This is just so shocking and antithetical to any kind of straight-laced kind of point of view that like a Reagan Republican would have wanted to portray to the world. And so folks know that to rebalance power means to actually win some things. We got to win North Carolina. We got to win Maine. We got to think about like these new places that are emerging. Texas is among them. And I do hear folks say things like, oh, well, we've tried before. The amount of time, look, y'all, I have been a Texas Democrat for a very long time. And so I've heard the Lucy and the football analogy more than anyone else probably on this call. And I can tell you, it's always been cumulative. Like every race from Wendy Davis to Beto O'Rourke to maybe even Colin Allred, but I think that the national wind had a lot to do with why his kind of went back a little bit. But like we've been registering more voters every single cycle. We've been taking a different and new like big urban county. started in Houston, moved to Fort Bend. It started in Dallas, it moved to Tarrant County. We just picked up that Tarrant County special election in Taylor
Right.
River. So there have been gains along the way that have changed the face of Texas. And I have never seen the stars align like they are right now with fighting with Cornyn and Paxton, with the once in a generation persuasive candidate like Talarico, with the national wins in our sales. That's a big one. So it's a year to take it seriously.